So let's say I want to play a jazz standard like Satin Doll. But turn it into a montuno. Today, I'll show you how to create a montuno pattern out of any chord progression. And by the way, you can apply these concepts to any montuno pattern that you want. All right, so the first thing we need to do is decide on the montuno pattern that we're going to use. Here's the 2-3 clave montuno pattern we're going to use. Remember to choose the correct pattern for the clave that you're using. The downbeat goes in the 2 part of the clave and the upbeats on the 3 part of the clave. And usually you want to create a 4-measure pattern because that's what works for most forms. Now you need to decide on the compound line that you're going to use for your montuno. We just did a video on compound lines using Billy Joel's Summer Highland Falls to show you how compound lines emerge from different layers when you play patterns using different layers. You can check that video in the iCard right there. Piano montunos always have 2 layers. The outside layer, which creates the montuno line, and the inside layer, which provides the rest of the harmonic context. And usually the outside line is a guide tone line. For example, on an E minor 7 to A7, we can play something like this. Notice how the line D to C sharp is a guide tone line for an E minor 7 to A7 progression. Remember that the guide tones of a chord are the 3 and the 7 of the chord. The guide tones for E minor 7 are G, the 3rd, and D, the 7th. And the guide tones for A7 are G and C sharp. So, in an E minor 7 to A7 progression, the D wants to move to C sharp. And of course, the G wants to stay fixed because it's the 3rd of E minor 7, which turns into the 7th of A7. And sure, we could use that guide tone line to create a montuno pattern, but the moving line is way better. Now, the inner layer in the montuno is used to provide the harmonic context. So on E minor 7, we can play G and B to complete the E minor 7 chord. Remember that the note E is on the bass, so we don't really need it here. And on A7, we can play G and A, or G and E. But a much better inner line for A7 is G and B, exactly as on the E minor 7. And this is because on any chord, the most important notes are the guide tones. And we're already providing the C sharp on our outside line. So we just need to add the G to the inner line to make sure that we've also included the 7th of our chord. Now we're free to choose the other note for the inner harmonic line. So our options would be a chord tone E or A. Or one of those nice tensions that we're always talking about, the 9th, B, or the 13th, F sharp. And the 9th works great, and it's really easy to play because it's the exact same note that we're playing on the E minor 7. By the way, you'll see that all the left hand is really doing here is copying the bottom notes of the right hand. This is the simplest, most straightforward approach to a montuno, and as you can hear, it really opens up the sound of our arrangement. A great exercise to practice is to play parallel descending 2/5s, like this. In the PDF, we've added this exercise in all keys so you can work on it. So let's take a look at some of the important characteristics that we use to turn Satin Doll into a montuno. As you can see right off the bat in the first measures, we're using the exact formula that we gave you earlier. The flat 7 of D minor moves to the 3rd of G7, C to B. In the inner harmony, we're just using F and A for both chords. You'll see the same exact thing in measures 3 and 4 with the E minor 7 to A7 also. Another important thing to pay attention to is what's happening here at the end of measure 2. These notes are in consideration of the next chord, E minor 7, not the G7 in measure 2. In that regard, I want you to see these as pickup notes into the next measure. This is kind of a consequence of another trait of the Montuno. The bass in Latin grooves is almost always playing ahead of the harmony. You'll see the same pickup note approach here at the end of measure 6 as well. It's also important to consider breaking the Montuno during the turnaround. This can be done by simply abandoning the Montuno characteristics that we've spoken about to this point, and just comp using interesting voicings for a split second. You'll notice that we replaced the 2-5 with 2 sharp 9 chords at the end of the section. These chords with these tensions always fit the style really well and always sound good. And you can see this same exact technique used again at the end of the B section. Down here in the B section, you'll also notice that we have this chord, F major 7, that doesn't change for a couple measures. So what we'll do here to create more of a sense of movement is play a line cliche. And we'll go with a 7-6-5 in this case. But really any line cliche will work here. It's all of these little things that come together to create that classic Montuno sound. And like I said, these are foolproof techniques that you can always rely on to play or create any Montuno. In the PDF for today's video, we have annotated all the important concepts used. And remember, all of our members will get this PDF, which links to this video for future reference and to an exclusive access video with call and response backing tracks. And if you're not a member yet, what are you waiting for? Go ahead and join right here on YouTube and gain access to this and all the great materials that we publish on a regular basis.